Welcome back to our next video in our Melange for React developer series where we're reading through Melange for React devs. We're going to be covering chapter 4 today, titled Celsius Converter Using Options. Summary of our chapter is going to be the same component from the previous chapter, but replacing exception handling with the option type. We're going to learn about the option type, how to use option.map, and when guards. So without further ado, let's dive in. Celsius Converter using option. After all the changes we made in the last chapter, your Celsius converter might look something like this. Yep, that's pretty close to what we have, if not identical. What happens if you forget the exception branch of your switch expression? Your program will crash when invalid input is entered. The compiler won't warn you to add an exception branch because it doesn't keep track of which functions throw exceptions. Next, it will show you a better way which completely avoids functions that can fail in unexpected ways. Float of string opt. Refactor the expression to use float of string opt instead. This function has the type signature string to an option of float. It takes a string argument and returns some number if it succeeds and none if it fails, meaning that if this function fails, no exception is raised. So let's refactor this, and we are going to, in our switch, take Celsius. This is going to be of opt, and we will get rid of this bit here. This can now be a none, and this will be error. And down here we'll have our Fahrenheit, and we'll have to perform the rest of our calculations. In fact, we need to unbox our Fahrenheit value from the sum constructor. And we'll do Fahrenheit into our convert function, and then we'll pipe that into js.float.toFixed. Add that digits, which is our labeled argument, equals 2, and toFixed. And then we need to plus plus. We need another paren there. And we'll add our paren at the beginning. And then we pipe that. Actually, this should be correct. So it looks like we need to, that's closed. Actually, oh, there we go. It's just the LSP lagging. So we're good there. In terms of functionality, this does exactly what the previous version did. But a critical difference is that if you comment out the /none branch, the compiler will refuse to accept it. So recall that when we had the exception and we commented it out or removed it, the compiler was just fine. However, when we use an option and we comment it out, it's going to be like, hey, we have an error now. This pattern matching is not exhaustive. Here's an example of a case that is not matched. None. So let's add that back in. You would get a similar error if you left off the sum branch. Having an option value be the input for a switch expression means that you can't forget to handle the failure case, much less the success case. There's another advantage. The or sum Fahrenheit branch gives you access to the float that was successfully converted from the string, and only this branch has access to that value. So you can be reasonably sure that the success is handled here and not somewhere else. You're starting to experience the power of pattern matching in OCaml. Option.map. It's a shame we had to give up the long chain of function calls from when we were still using float of string. Celsius, the float of string, to convert to fixed. Actually, we can still use a very similar chain of functions with float of string opt if we make a couple of small additions. So we're going to refactor to use option.map. So let's come back up here, and we'll come in here and we'll say float of string, and we'll pipe that to option.map convert, and then we'll pipe that to option.map js.float.toFixed, pass in our digits, equals 2. And here you're starting to see a bunch of the concepts that we covered already come together. We're building these pipelines with our pipeline operator, we're using partial application, and we're using our option type. So let's save that and format it. And of course, we're going to get a type error here. So now down here, we already have converted this Celsius to a string in this step right here. So this is no longer a number type. It is now a string type. So we can actually come down here and delete everything in here, since we did it with our option maps, and pipe that, or not pipe it, we can concatenate that with that, and there we go. We're happy. Option.map takes a function and an option value and only invokes the function if the option was sum. Hovering over it, you can see that its type signature is a function that goes from A to B, and the second argument being an option of A. So what this is saying is, if this option in the second parameter is a sum value rather than a num value, we're going to take that internal A value and call this function on it, and then return a new option containing the B that we returned. Breaking the type signature down, the first argument A to B is a function which accepts a value of type A, placeholder for any type, and returns a value of type B, also a placeholder for any type, though it may be a different type than A. The second argument, option A, is an option that wraps around the value of type A. The return type of option.map is option B, which is an option that wraps around a value of B. The implementation of option.map is fairly straightforward, consisting of a single switch expression. So this is how you could actually implement the actual option.map function. So let map equals a function and an option. We're going to switch on the option. If it's none, we're just going to return none. But if it is sum, we're going to pull out the value. We're going to call the function we passed in on that value and rewrap it in sum. You may be interested in browsing the many other helper functions relating to options in the standard library's option module. At this point, your switch expression might look like this. Yep, that looks pretty much identical to what we have. Enter the when guard. What if we wanted to render a message of complaint when the temperature goes above 212 degrees Fahrenheit, the boiling point of water, and not even bother to render the converted number? It could look like this. In our sum case, we can then go ahead and use a ternary. Fahrenheit is greater than 212. We'll return unreasonably hot. Otherwise, we'll return our normal process. This works, but OCaml gives you a construct that allows you to do the float comparison without using a nested ternary expression. We can add a new branch to our switch statement. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll say sum Fahrenheit, and then we'll add our when guard when Fahrenheit is greater than 212 degrees. Then we'll return this bit over here. So let's grab that and paste it. So this is part of the beauty of pattern matching, and stuff like this is exactly why I love working in languages that have pattern matching. So here you'll notice we get a type error, right? Because in our switch statement, we are converting our option to a string before we start matching on it. So let's get rid of the second option.map here. And now this needs to be converted back to a string. So let's grab that code, and we're going to want to take this and we'll go over here. We'll paste that in there. And this will be our first argument. Put the comma there, delete that. And now we should be good. So if we go check our running app, let's see, I forget what port we're running on. We are running on port 5173. So let's go check that in the browser. And if we convert to something above, there we go, unreasonably hot. So that's all working. The when guard allows you to add extra conditions to a switch expression branch, keeping nesting of conditionals to a minimum and making your code more readable. I love this because you can quickly, at a glance, see all of the possible conditions and branches that a pattern match can have. Hooray! Our Celsius converter is finally complete. Later we'll see how to create a component that can convert back and forth between Celsius and Fahrenheit, but first we'll explore Dune, the build system used by Melange. As a recap, prefer functions that return options over those that throw exceptions. When the input of a switch expression is an option, the compiler can helpfully remind you to handle the error case. Option.map is very useful when chaining functions that return options. And we can also use a when guard to make our switch expressions more expressive without nesting conditionals. So now we have some exercises. So exercise 1. If you enter a space in the input, it'll unintuitively produce a Fahrenheit value of 32 degrees because float of string empty equals sum 0. Handle this case correctly by showing question mark Fahrenheit instead. So we can probably pattern match on this. String convert. We can add a new branch here, and we'll say sum Fahrenheit when Fahrenheit equals 0.0 unused variable Fahrenheit, and we'll come over here and we'll change this to, oh, that should probably be an equal. We'll change this to return our lovely Fahrenheit bit. So let's grab that, yoink, and we'll come over here and swap that out. So now if we come check, we should be maybe we didn't get it. So let's see where our bug is. Okay. So we are going to have to refactor this a little bit. So let's make our bit bigger here. And we will take this, and rather than calling convert in here, we will do a match. Where would we want to do this match? We can move this. So let's just move this down below here. We'll throw that here and throw that in a comment. And then this is going to be, now should be a float. Good. We'll return that. That sounds good. And then down here, we will pipe Fahrenheit into convert. We don't have to call option.map anymore because we are unboxing our option using pattern matching. So we can say Fahrenheit, and we'll pass that into convert, and then we'll pass the result of that into js.float, and we can use partial application and do that, and hopefully this expression has type string. We probably have to wrap this in parens, and there we go. That should now handle our case. If we go take a look, we get our error. Let's see here. Is that what we wanted? Let's check the solution. We have a string.trim function. I guess that makes sense. We could have done that. That was probably the smarter option. Okay, so second exercise. So let's just go ahead and copy their solution since it is better than ours. And we'll take this and we'll view around that, paste that in, format, there we go. Add another branch with a when guard that renders unreasonably cold if the temperature is less than 128.6. Okay, so we know how to do that. So let's grab that line, and over here we'll just switch that to there, and this will be negative 128.6. We can delete that. And now we should be able to come over here and let's do negative. So we appear to have a problem. I bet I copied. I am almost certain I copied. Yeah, there was our bug chat. Copy, paste error. Okay, well, we got that right. We just copied and pasted incorrectly. So we'll fix that up. Cool, so we did have the right solution. Use JS float.fromString instead of float of string op to parse a string to float. Note that JS float from string does not return none if it fails to parse string to a valid float. Let's take a look at this. What does this return? Raises a range error. Okay. Change this to be js.float dot from string, and in here we'll have to now match on different cases, and we can do, let's see here, this says it returns a t, which our t is let nan. So maybe we can do, we can write a little helper function here, and we can say of JS float. So let's say let of JS float, and this will take a value that is going to be a js.float.t, and we'll then pipe this into, not pipe it, we'll make a function and we'll switch on value. Actually, we'll just say js.float.isNone value, and we'll do our ternary, and we'll say if it is none, we'll return nan, otherwise we'll return our sum. Let's see here, what is this subset about? Oh, right, that needs to be a colon. So our function signature here should be a float to option float, and then we can take this and we can keep everything, and we'll just do of JS float. What is this? Oh, because this has to be defined above. So let's go ahead and put that up here. And now that should work. We should actually rename this. A better name for this might be like JS float opt. Yeah, something like that. And now we can keep everything, and let's see what they said their recommended solution was. Use JS float is not a number. Yep, they did the exact thing we did. Excellent. Awesome. Cool. Well, that wraps up the fourth chapter here on we built a Celsius converter using options. We'll catch you next time where we start learning about Dune.